Hello, I play competitive Warhammer 2 with over 4,000 hours in the game. Today I will be covering every single spell in the Lore of Deep at every skill level. Starting off at the most basic level, should you take the Lore of the Deep passive? Well, the answer is yes. If you cast 2 spells over the course of the game, it will pay for itself. With that out of the way, let's get into the spells. Tidecall is a damage and disruption spell that should only be used for infantry. Of course, it has a slow too, but that's a bit negligible. Spiteful Shot gives a decent but sometimes unnoticeable accuracy increase, but more importantly, it gives magic damage to both ranged and melee attacks of the unit that you cast it on, despite only being castable on units with a ranged attack. Nevertheless, it is very useful against ethereals even in melee. Denizens of the Deep will stall for 1 minute, a decent but not very long amount of time, while doing a decent but not very high amount of damage. Nevertheless, not a terrible spell. Fog of the Damned will help your unit survive a few seconds longer the more winds of magic you put into it. It also provides a minor leadership debuff, which will help units rout a few seconds faster. For Vangheist's Revenge, if you can land it, it will annihilate high model infantry, but do very little against monstrous infantry and high damage to cavalry. But if you want to actually kill models, you should overcast. Last but not least, the Kraken's Pull, an equally devastating ability over a longer period of time. It also acts as an unmoving vortex spell instead of a wind spell. Now for spell combos, I recommend just Tidecall and Kraken's Pull. The reason I cut Denizens of the Deep and Fog of the Damned is because even when you're rushing, you don't actually see melee that often. Most of the time you are just trying to jump on top of the archers and your opponent is throwing chaff at you to slow you down. If you're going to be going up against something like Green Knight though, Spiteful Shot is going to be very useful for you there. It won't really be winning you artillery fights, so I basically never take it as a ranged tool. For other factions though, like Beastmen or Chaos, if you want to actually rush them, I think Denizens of the Deep and Fog of the Damned are actually quite useful here. Just make sure you're not casting them at the same time. Onto spell optimizations, you should always overcast Spiteful Shot. For 2 more winds of magic, it will last twice as long, which is over a whole minute. As for Kraken's Pull and casting on archers, make sure they are firing first too, since they will be unable to move immediately after firing. The vortex of Kraken's Pull is large enough where it can be pretty difficult to dodge if you employ this tactic. Also be sure to overcast if you're not able to chase off the unit. Kraken's Pull does not kill models if it's not overcast, and those archers will be fierce when they come back. For Tidecall, it combos particularly well with Silostra's item, which reduces ability cooldown each time you cast a spell. So the best action there is to use Tidecall as much as possible. And that about wraps everything up. If you're wondering when to take this Lore of Magic, you will be running it whenever you take Silostra on a rush. In the meta right now, there's no real reason to take it otherwise, so although an uncommon Lore of Magic, it definitely has its uses. I will be continuing this series and posting regularly, so if you are interested, do sub because I also stream my tournament games. So shilling out of the way, if you'd like me to cover any other topics, you can leave a comment below, and I hope to see you in the next one.